Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. This video will be a little bit more philosophical than the rest of the videos that I usually make. And that is because I read an article from Business Insider and it triggered a connection between purebred horses that Putin gave Kim Jong-un. The key word here is purebred horses, and then a book that I admire and I like very much, and a philosopher that I admire very much, which is, or who is, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. And specifically this book. I will discuss how Plato, in his book Republic, The Republic, would be considered nowadays as a Nazi. Because I will read you, it's going to be a little bit of reading here. I'm going to read you some, how do you call it, dialogues between, obviously, in Plato's Republic, between Socrates, supposedly, and someone else, regarding breeding. Breeding, like, you know, you have horses breed and have a purebred, and then you have cocks, which is chicken. Cocks, okay, have them again, and I will talk about eugenics, and through eugenics, who were very popular in the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s in Europe and United States of America. They use this idea that through breeding certain members of a group, you can alter the genes in a direction you want. And Plato makes that point in his book regarding, as I said, horses and chicken, which is a well-known thing for everyone, that you can have certain, like dogs and cats. We bred them, we put them together, some of them, right? You can, pigs, you take, how do you call it, pigeons for meat, for flying long and so on. We bred them. But somehow that works only to the every other animal or living creature except man or human beings. Isn't that strange? And I'm going to show you how Business Insider falls into this trap by reporting this without understanding that actually what they say, they agree with the evil guys from 1930s and 40s Europe. So let's read this first. Business Insider. Putin gifted Kim Jong-un 24 purebred horses, now, as payment for the artillery shells. Now, they obviously are focusing on this one, for the payment for the artillery shells North Korea, supposedly, Business Insider, sent to Russia. So, but they ignore this thing here. Why? Because they should say, well, there's no such a thing. Or, if it's such a thing, how come it's available only for horses? Anyway, I'm not promoting anything, I'm just drawing attention. Here are the horses. And it says, Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin made sure to show off what seems like a budding bromance on Wednesday. Kim lavished Putin with gifts, including art pieces of the Russian leader, while he got a luxury limousine. Under the smiles and laughs, both leaders hoped... So let's see. Here it is. The horses, 19 stallions and 5 mares, or Orlov trotters, Kim's favorite breed. This is the latest instance of animal diplomacy between the two countries. All right, so these are the ones, right? If you remember, you can see, or if you don't know, you can see Kim Jong-un, the woodchuck, on this, riding a horse, white horse, and okay. So this is the idiotic, with no problem, imbecilic title, but they want you to focus not on the purebred horses, but on the North Korean shells sent to these guys. So I'm going to read part of this. It's not going to take long. Maybe there's about 5 or 6 paragraphs, short, the dialogue. But before that, let's discuss what is this all about. So Plato tries to create, through dialogue, mostly what Plato did, using Socrates, his teacher, being the one who asks questions. That's the Socratic way of finding the truth, by asking why, how come, why. So this is the Socratic Socratic method, which is asking why and why and why. So he does the same thing by trying to figure and then philosophize with the answers of the person who's a part of the dialogue with Socrates. So this book is about creating a good society, and he divides the society in three main groups, which is the first one is the leaders, the other one is the guardians, like the military, the police, and so on. The leaders is clear, right? The philosopher king, that's what he meant. Philosopher king. The second one is the guardians of the state, of the city-state, of the society. And then the third one are the commoners. He called them differently, but the commoners, like the craftsmen, like we are, baboons that work, right? So he claims in this paragraph that I will read, that actually you need to put certain people together in order to get a certain kind of trait. You know what I mean? Okay, I don't know, I'm not supporting, I'm just asking questions, and I'm reaching a conclusion that Plato would be considered, and is probably, a Nazi in this time. And probably I will, if I don't forget, by the end of this video, I will tell you a direct experience in US college with this. First, I started this in university, and I made a paper on this issue, and my paper gave me an asterisk at my final grade. Fantastic, which gave me I'm fantastic. Why? Because I choose a topic. I can't tell you the name of the topic. Maybe these guys are going to look for it at my university and find it. I'm not ashamed whatsoever. It was graded fantastically, so that means Anyway, so let me walk you through this summary, which is better than I could explain. It says, Socrates, the guy included in the dialogue, divides the citizens into three groups. The guardians are divided into two groups, the rulers and the auxiliaries. These are the craftsmen. The rulers take priority in ruling the state, and the auxiliaries aid them. The third group is essentially the same as had been previously discussed, the craftsmen. All right, so here it is. It says, as we might expect, the rulers are the very best of the guardians. They must be older and more experienced men. These rulers must be incorruptible and impervious, so you can't bribe them, to bribes. And in their youth, as they mature, they will have been tested, that's a key word, not identify as, to ensure their honesty. In other words, the ruler will rule as heads of states, the auxiliaries will police and defend the state, the craftsmen will conduct the necessary day-to-day business of the state, while the auxiliaries will be the guardians, is going to be the guys in the middle. So let's go over reading the paragraph. So this is a student book. This is where when I rather used to call 17 used book. Doesn't really matter. Knowledge matters. And this is in, oh my God, a long time ago. And while opening this, I found something at one point. And can you guess what I found? It's not particular to one point. I attended this. You know who that guy is? MSU safe. Norman Finkelstein. Yes, I shook hands with him. I have a picture with him actually, and I plan on inviting him on this show when time permits. So I know it's a page right here. I have a little receipt. Is that what it is? Yeah, that's exact the receipt. No, it's not. Oh, it's something else. Anyway, so it's on page. I will start with page 137 or 458. Whichever works best for you. And you're going to start at the bottom. I always underline and exclamation mark on the side of the I'm going to cover this one right here, what I wrote. Underline and exclamation marks on the side of the over there. Basically, this is almost all underlined because everything is impossible. What's that? That's what Plato said. But they said pure bread. So let's start with this page, and I'm going to start reading. Let me see how I get it so I can have a better read position. So it says here, for I am this is Glaucon and Socrates. Glaucon is the baboon, and Socrates is obviously the one that's going to ask why, and then I'm going to ask questions. Don't you think that this is that? What? How about that? And the guy is answering. Plato, obviously, answers to Glaucon, because this is communication. Sometimes that's why when you have conversations with friends, family, you find truth by communicating, or even talking to yourself. You find things. Yeah. So 4. I see hunting dogs and quite a throng of noble cocks in your house. Socrates tells Glaucon. Did you, in the name of Zeus, ever notice something about their marriages and procreation? ? And the Glaucon says, what? What, he says. And first, this is Socrates. Although they are all noble, aren't there some among them who are and prove to be the best? And he says, Glaucon answers, they are. And again, Socrates, do you breed from all alike, or are you eager to breed from the best as much as possible? And Glaucon answers, from the best. So that means from the best cocks, chicken and whatever they have over there, he takes from the best and he makes them procreate. So why? And I'm quoting. And what about this? From the youngest or from the oldest, or much as possible from those in their prime? So he said, are you going to breed them from the old geezers or from the younger geezers? You want a sturdy. Again, this occurred at about 2,400 years ago, because this was, I think, in 480 some BCE, before Common Era. So imagine these guys thinking about genes, knowing it by experience, but did not know exactly what it is. They talked about atoms and others. Those guys were different. And these guys are talking about I identify and I cut my cock. Oh my God. Talking about cocks. All right. It says here, and he says the Glaucon answers, from those in their prime. And if they weren't so bred, do you believe that the species of birds and that of dogs would be far worse for you? So he says, if you don't breed them from the best, don't you think that the resultant would be garbage? And Glaucon answers, I do. And then again, Socrates says, and what do you think about horses and the other animals? I said, is it in any way different? Asks Socrates. And Glaucon says, that would be strange if they would be different. Glaucon answers, my dear comrade, says Socrates. I said, how very much we need eminent rulers after all, if it is also the same with the human species. Oh, Nazi. Right there. So he's talking about, Plato says through Socrates, so is it true that you have the birds, the horses, the same way you bred from the best because they will have the best? And if you don't bred them from the best and you bred them from the, you're going to have, and he says, yes. So he said, don't you think that works for too? Wouldn't be strange if that wouldn't work for us too? Plato asks, Socrates asks. And he says, of course it is, Glaucon answers. All right, so we go further. On the basis of what has been agreed, Socrates says, there is a need for the best man to have intercourse as often as possible with the best woman, and the reverse for the most ordinary men with the most ordinary women. Do you understand that? And the offspring of the former must be reared, but not that of the others. So Socrates says, from the best man for best women that we decide should bred as much as possible, and not from the ones that right now have, all that. And he said we should rear them as much as possible, the best, but not the least. Remember the Spartans? Now they try to discard the fact that the Spartans were having that little good, no, good, yeah, good, no. All right, so let's go further. It's more than that, my friends. And it says here, so reared but not of the others, if the flock is going to be of the most eminent quality. And all this must come to pass without being noticed. So the government, the perfect society, according to Plato, should do this without the society knowing it. Secret. He is for censorship as well, but I will explain that maybe in another video. I explained it many times before in my videos. And he says, all this must be done without being noticed by anyone except the rulers themselves, if the guardian's herd is to be as free as possible from fiction. And the other one says, quite right, he agrees. Let's move further. So, Socrates says, certain festivals and sacrifices must be established by law at which will bring the brides and grooms together, and our poets must make hymns suitable to the marriages that take place. The number of the marriages will leave to the rulers in order that they may most nearly preserve the same number of men. Is that Malthusian population control? I think so. So they have to control the number. Right? Taking into consideration the same number of men, taking into consideration wars, diseases, and everything else of the sort. And thus, our city will, within the limits of the possible, become neither big nor little. That is control, population control. Right, he says Glaucon. And I'm quoting again, I suppose certain subtle lots must be fabricated so that the ordinary man, you and I, will blame chance rather than the rulers for each union. So they will engineer the reproduction of population, but we should not figure it out. They just do it. This is Plato, 2,400 years ago. I'm pretty sure that was just lost in space. I'm the genius who just found it now. These guys were, our rulers are studying this and have been studying real books. They give you Maya Angelou and other garbages to study, and how important, how fantastic that writer is. Oh, Nobel Prize, Elie Wiesel, and so on. This is for garbage like us to read, but they read the real thing. They read the real thing. Think about that one. They make us idiots so we don't figure it out. But they don't send their kids to the same idiotic schools we have access to. And we have access to the public schools with their curriculum, and they have access to the private schools with a different curriculum. My friends. But hey, no. This is conspiracy theory, is it? All right. And presumably, along with other prizes and rewards, the privilege of more abundant intercourse with the women must be given to those of the young who are good in war or elsewhere, so that under this pretext the most children will also be sown by such men. So he said, who's good in war, who has those traits? Remember epigenetics, we just found these things. Supposedly, we put them in practice, actually. Epigenetics, you know, your traits, your lifetime traits will be passed to the offspring. That's what it is. Let's say I'm good at basketball. That's why they say, well, his son is a basketball player because his father was. They're good athletes because why? That's one of the reasons. Now you can't really say that unless it's politically correct to claim it for certain groups, but not from others. And interesting that in this world, physical traits could be passed, but not intellectual traits. Supposedly. Why? Politically incorrect. So he said, how about the guys good in war should as much with the best women that we have, so the offspring, right, the kids will be good in war, he claims without evidence. But somehow it works for purebred horses Putin gave Kim Jong-un. My God. Anyway, and he says here, and he says, right, says Glaucon. So I think they will take the offspring of the good and bring them into the pen to certain nurses who live apart in a certain section of the city, and those of the wars and any of the others born deformed, they will be hid away in an unspeakable and unseen places, as is seemly. That's what he says. If, he said, the guardian species is going to remain pure. Oh my God. It's right here. I showed you. You see over there? Read that thing over there. If the guardian species is remain pure, Won't they also supervise the nursing, leading the mothers to the pan when they are full with milk, inventing every device so the nun will recognize her own? That means we're going to build them, but they will never recognize who the mothers are and who these guys are. You're just going to create robotic humans, it seems like, no? All right, and fully inventing every device so the nun will recognize their own, and providing others who do have milk if the mothers themselves are insufficient, quote mark and question mark. It says, as it's fitting, I said, let's go through the next point we proposed. We said, of course, that the offspring must be born of those in their prime. And Glaucon says, true, true. Do you share the opinion that a woman's prime lists on the average 20 years and a man's 30? Which years? Glaucon says. So he claims that it's between 30 at a man, 20 for women. So yeah, don't a 50-year-old woman is the same, is as good as for procreation as a 20-year-old. That's why they are so desirable. A woman, I said, beginning with their 20th year, bears for the city up for her 40th, and a man beginning from the time when he passes his swiftest prime at running, begets for the city up to his 55th year. It's another thing that we found out later. And he says, of course, he said, this is the prime of body and produce prudence for both. Then if a man who is older than this or younger engages in reproduction for the commonwealth, we shall say that it's a fault, neither holy nor just. So he would ban people out of their prime having, it seems like to me. All right, and he says, and the same law applies, I said, when a man still of the age to beget touches a woman of the age, if a ruler has not united them, will say he's imposing that's the word, bastard, an unauthorized and unconsecrated child on the city. And Glaucon says, quite right. So if they don't follow the orders of breeding among the best and so on, and they get out of the prime, that should be called I'm not going to mention the name again. Now, I suppose that when the woman and the man are beyond the ages of procreation, we will, of course, leave them free to have an intercourse with whomever they wish, except with a daughter, a mother, the children of their daughters, and the ancestors of their mother. And as for the women, except with a son and a father, and the descendants of the one and the ancestors of the other. And all this only after they have been told to be especially careful never to let even a single fetus see the light of day. If one should be conceived, and if one should be force its way, to deal with it on the understanding that there's to be no rearing for such. I'm going to read it again. To deal with it on the understanding that there's to be no rearing for such a child. So if they break this kind of no rearing, right, Sparta? This is certainly a sensitive statement, he said. But how will they distinguish one another's fathers and daughters and the others you just mentioned? So he goes over and says, the commonly keep them separate. So this is what these guys are saying. This is Plato for you. Plato for you from, remember, if you want to go to the books, you got 459. This is in book 5. It's right here on top. You can find over there. It's not me just coming out of garbage, okay? You find over there, or go in the bottom, and you find that kind of number. All right, good enough? Good enough with this? Now my point is, if I call Business Insider and ask them, I'm going to put this back where it belongs. If I ask Business Insider regarding what they said about the purebred horses and ask them about humans, I guarantee you they will say that's impossible. And let me give you this last. I'm not supporting this. I'm just reading. Eugenics. All right, good, well, the Greek, ancient Greek. All right, it says here, born, come into being, growing, grown. It's a set of beliefs. You got a set of beliefs, just beliefs, and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population. Historically, eugenics have altered various human gene frequencies by inhibiting the fertility of people and groups purported to be pop or promoting that of those purported to be pop. All right, my friends. So I'm not saying that obviously, I'm just kidding, Plato is a Nazi or whatever, but that's the way it is with these guys. I know I had it was a anthropology class that I took in college, and we had a professor, and she came and she said that, you know, when they have a PowerPoint, they simply vomit some information over there, and then they think we're just baboons over there in a classroom. So the first, or one of the first statements, written statements in the PowerPoint was, we know that nurture and nature are 50-50. And since we're in college, and you know, plagiarism and oh, let's put Mr. Finkelstein back, and since we know that every time you write a paper and you claim something, you have to use a peer review accredited source. You can't use anybody else because they're not peer reviewed. That means they just gonna be in their own circle of accepted conclusions during the World War and other things. So I said, excuse me, how do you know it's 50-50? I said, what's your source? The first question she asked me, what's your degree? What's your degree? So that was her question, and then she agreed that she doesn't have a source, but it's generally admitted, admitted that that's the way it is. And I said, no, that's not. That's not. And then she started talking about eugenics, obviously the same person, and talking about eugenics, placed a picture of obviously the most evil person in the world history. His name is Adolf. And I said, okay, well, if that's the case, was Plato? Because she said eugenics, obviously Nazi, obviously, what's his name? Richard Wagner, obviously Friedrich Nietzsche, all our, I know, monsters of our civilization, some of them, part of the, they are, you know, Nazis because of that guy. Anyway, including our Roman salute is also now. No, because the Romans, the Romans, used it for more than 1,000 years, but somehow this guy and some people used it for some imbecilic things for what, 15 years, for 14, 10, 14, 13, 11 years, and all of a sudden they took a poop on that one. Please, it's like you wouldn't make the cross anymore, sign of the cross, or read the Bible because of what some imbeciles did, let's say with the Inquisition, or burning our scientists on the stake, like Giordano Bruno, let's say, okay? So you're gonna ban it? No. Or go, if you want, to other religions as well, like Judaism. Why did I mention that? Read about Moses taking care of cities, but kept the virgins. Why? Huh? Kept the virgins? Okay. Hey, generals, kept the virgins. It's in the Old Testament. I wrote 2 books on that. Go and find them on Amazon if you want. God's Nature. That's how they're called. So my friends, we have, and I said, how about Plato? Was he a Nazi? She didn't know anything about Plato. Nothing. He didn't even know what I was talking about. So that was one, and didn't know anything about it. And it was another one that I mentioned. I can't remember right now. Who in the hell? Oh, I mentioned Nietzsche. Obviously, was he again? Because Nietzsche, you know, said some bad things about. So you can't have that. You can't have that. And remember, Nietzsche was with Übermensch, wasn't he? Wasn't he? So Übermensch referring to the same thing, you know. But who is in charge of breathing this? They say, well, people who prove themselves and in charge, the philosopher king. I think this is the Republic is a very idealistic, obviously, and Plato, wasn't Plato in charge? I think Plato was in charge of a city-state at one point, and he tried to implement his thing, and he didn't succeed. Anyway, this is for you, the Business Insiders. Let me read it again for you. Purebred horses. Pure, and they wrote it. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.